Good morning, everyone, or I guess afternoon for those in Eastern time. We'll go ahead and get started today. Welcome to the Scale Up Blueprint, Sourcing and Winning Builder Operators. Before we dive in, I have a few housekeeping items. We are recording this session, and we'll share the link out with everyone afterward. So be conscious of that as you're asking questions or whatnot. Please use the Q&A bubble throughout the presentation to submit questions as they come up, and we'll be addressing them and answering in real time. So if you have any questions on the material, we welcome it. There is a Q&A button there at the bottom of your screen to use and submit questions. Quick intro, I'm Katie Harper, the VP of Product and Partnerships at Small Business Consulting Corporation. At SBCC, our focus is on getting the right tech into the hands of the warfighter. So we host these monthly sessions because we know that scaling a company is often a huge part of the success of a company itself, not just the technology that's being built. And we want to help build companies as well. We're joined today by Kathleen Avery and Faith Sharp, partners at August Leadership. August Leadership is a partner-led executive search firm dedicated to placing board, C-suite, and senior functional leaders thriving in regulated mission-critical environments. They work across several industries listed there: aerospace and defense, manufacturing, AI digital transformation, autonomy, supply chain, energy, and industrial spaces. Today's focus is going to focus on a critical inflection point, scaling past the initial growth phase. So we'll be breaking down specific strategies needed to source, win, and integrate builder operators and take your company to the next level, particularly around the fundamental shifts that occur at that 50 employee mark and how to navigate them. Kathleen and Faith, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourselves and then go ahead and dive right into today's content. Thank you for joining.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm just waiting to start my video.
No worries.
It's blocked. I can't start my video.
Huh.
It says
Okay,
it's blocked by the host.
we will take a look at that if you want to go ahead and get started with the
Sure.
content itself.
My background includes over 25 years as a headhunter in the technology sector. And I've also been in your shoes. I founded and grew a software consulting company which I successfully sold for 100x return. And that experience taught me exactly what it takes to build a leadership team that can actually scale. And now I'll turn it over to my partner, Faith Sharp. Faith?
Hi, I'm Faith. Yeah. I'm a partner with August Leadership. I've been in executive recruiting for several years now, following a career with the military intelligence community and Department of Defense. I spent 20 years as an intelligence analyst. Um, and now I'm doing the recruiting. Can we do next slide? So we're just going to jump into the slides. So the big leap for startups. Yeah. So there is next slide, sorry. So there is a reason why the 50 employee mark is one of the most challenging milestones in a company's life. It is the breaking point where what got you to where you are now is not going to get you where to 100. So at this stage, you face many challenges. You face the death of management by osmosis. In the early stage, people learn by being around each other. And this is possible because everyone is pretty much in the same room. But at 50, that's impossible. And now you need clear communication, defined processes, intentional management, and training. So you also hit the invisible compliance wall. So early in a startup, there's minimal rules, low friction, and part-time responsibility for every person. But later on, you need processes, you need HR regulations for benefits, and there's regulatory requirements for EEO reporting, family leave, and medical leave. Those requirements kick in federally and statewide. So this is now not just a part-time function, it's a full function that needs to be built into the company. There's cultural dilution gaps. Um, Early hires share the founder's energy and norms, but new hires typically don't. So if your values are not clearly defined and documented, the original culture starts to fade and gets replaced by new habits and influences. So this is another risk at 50. You go from generalist to specialist. So in a small startup, everyone wears multiple hats, but at 50, you need specialists who can execute at high levels in one function. So this is a transitioning from the old guard, people who are used to having a say in everything, often leading to friction, role confusion, and people might struggle to adapt. So this change drives many other issues. There's the communication tax. So more people equals more meetings, more coordination, and more alignment in the work. Communication doesn't scale, it gets harder. So this is one of the biggest operational costs of growth. And without a shared playbook, your team can spend up to 25% of their time just trying to stay aligned. A company doesn't fail because of one of these issues. It fails because it doesn't evolve its operating system fast enough to handle everything at once. That's why it feels like a breaking point. Next slide, please. So the tribal knowledge, which is the chaos versus a shared playbook, is the structure. This picture depicts early stage startup to the structure that you need when you hit 50 employees. Next slide, please. So right now, your success is likely trapped in the heads of a few employees. That's called tribal knowledge, and it's a major risk because if one of those employees left, what would you do? So you need a shared playbook. A shared playbook is, instead of relying on a few individuals with all the knowledge, you have systems, you have documentation, and you have a single source of information. So this is how you move from asking around to this is how we do things in this company. Next slide, please. So finding your next key executive, the builder versus the optimizer, at this stage, hiring the right leader is critical. Next slide. So you have the persona, the builder operator, and the optimizer. So the cowboy is the builder operator. He thrives in chaos. He builds things from scratch. He rolls up his sleeves. Whereas the corporate type, the optimizer, thrives in a structure. He needs systems. He improves existing systems and refines what is already built. Next slide. So the builder operator can design an engine and also pick up the wrench. They're comfortable with a blank sheet of paper where there are no SOPs or HR manuals. But in contrast, the optimizer is a maintenance leader. They're brilliant at making existing companies run more efficiently, but they will freeze if you ask them to build anything from scratch. At 50 employees, you still need a builder operator, and you need someone who has seen what great looks like at scale, but hasn't forgotten how to roll up their sleeves and do the heavy lifting themselves. So many common mistakes that CEOs make are hiring big company names, big company executives too early because they want the prestige of like an Amazon or a Google resume on their slide deck. So those leaders, they often struggle early on in early stage chaos. Katie, do we have any questions yet?
Not yet, but I'll make sure to bring them up. Of course, anyone from the audience is always welcome to ask questions throughout. It's that Q&A question button down at the bottom of your screen.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is who you're looking for. You're looking for the unicorn candidate. So at 50 people, this leader can still do the work, but focuses on teaching others and building systems. So the builder operator profile, they thrive in scrappy environments. They think ahead. They focus on scaling through SOPs and systems. They're and strong at hiring. So they act without waiting. They stay resourceful and do whatever it takes with no ego and no excess spending. So how do you find this builder operator? Next slide. So top candidates aren't typically actively applying for positions. So how do you find them? Next slide. The typical sourcing funnel, you're not going to find your unicorns in the bucket at the top. Those are the active candidates applying for LinkedIn posts. Your executive talent that you're looking for is not actively looking. So a good resource in the middle are your referrals. So that could be referrals from colleagues, board members, investors. They should be a source of your candidate pool, but it will give you limited reach. And then the active sourcing is the most important bucket here. This is where like an executive search firm becomes one of the most critical resources for the growth of a company. They can help you develop and identify the ideal candidate profile, figure out where they work now, and do the heavy research for you to find the best-in-class candidates for these roles in a shorter amount of time. So let's think about the next steps to find once you find your star candidate. Next slide. So good candidates don't stay available long. When you find the right person, you need to you need to move quickly. Momentum matters. A personal experience that I've had with um, past searches is when we got to the final candidate that we wanted to make an offer to, management took too long to give this person an offer. As executive recruiters, we know if this person is actively in process with other companies. And so we knew this person was actively interviewing with other companies. And I think they took, it was like 2 or 3 weeks to give this person an offer, and he had accepted a different offer the day before. But he was asking for probably 2 weeks if an offer was going to come. And we kept saying yes, but they can only wait so long. And so we lost that candidate. Okay, next slide. This is where Kathleen takes over.
The other thing I want to mention is that when you're recruiting and you identify a candidate who isn't actively looking, something uncanny happens in the ether. All of a sudden, they become a hot commodity, and other people start going after them as well. So, as Faith mentioned, momentum is everything. If you find a hot candidate, you move on them, period. Okay, so let's talk about the Goldilocks interview process. The first thing is vision alignment. The CEO checks for fire in the belly and if they've really identified a builder operator. The next thing is the deep dive where the team drills down and gets the specific mechanics on how they've built systems in the past that have helped companies scale. This is crucial. The next is the working session. It involves a whiteboard where you stop talking, start working, give them a real problem the company is facing, and then see how they think, see how they collaborate, see how they handle pushback. And you might learn some things about the problems your company is working on. Next, in a more casual setting, let them meet the teams they'll be working with, see how they gel with them, see if they're a culture fit. Next slide, please. And if you determine that this person is indeed the right candidate for your company, then you pivot to the CEO as the chief closer. And the CEO now wants to treat that candidate as if they're a VC, and they do their pitch about the company as if they were pitching a VC firm. Next is to find their hot buttons and see, is it autonomy? Is it a path to the future COO role? Is it building a brand? And once you know this, you can start selling their future with the company. I want to make a note about C-suite titles here as well. There can be a tendency with a newly minted CEO to start handing out C-suite titles like they're candy. Can't caution enough against this enough more strongly, because it's a slippery slope, and once you start doing that, it's just a bad road to go down. Because everybody will want one of those from there on out, and to have a top heavy company is just a bad idea.
I have a question on that, Kathleen.
Yeah.
When is the right time to start naming C-level positions, or even which C-level positions should come first, maybe, and at which stages?
That's a great question. It's a very slow roll. It's a very, very slow roll. Founders typically get the C-suite roles. I think it really depends on the company. I would say it really depends on the company, and probably the technical person would be the one to get the first. You know, a CTO would probably be the first to get a C-suite title. That's my guess. But I think it's so dependent on what the company is doing and the level, who you're bringing in and what they need. I think it all depends. I'm just so conscious of, once you start giving out one C-suite title, it's just a house of cards. And what was the other part of your question?
At what stages other C-level positions even come on. But I think to your point, it does depend a bit on the setup of the company, if it's product driven or a huge technology firm or something maybe more outbound
Or if
sales.
it's sales driven,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it's truly sales driven, you might end up bringing in, making the sales role a C-suite title.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, oh, the whiteboard strategy is, I advise that CEOs use a whiteboard strategy instead of talking to them, build with them. Draw your 3-year roadmap and ask them, what holes do you see in this plan? And if you've got the right candidate in there, you might learn some things about your current plan. And the best way to sell a high performer is to be brutally honest about the ugly parts of your business. And they'll trust you more if you tell them why this position is going to be incredibly difficult. If you don't scare them off, you've got your candidate. Next slide. Okay, so you've managed to hire your dream candidate, but that's only 50% of the battle. Next, you've got to hold on to them, and that's going through the next 90 days. Okay, next slide, please. So you've got onboarding and integration. You've got to crawl, walk, and run. So the first 30 days is about giving them a shadowing mandate. You should have them sit in on sales calls, customer tickets, engineering stand-ups. Have them do a deep dive on product features, talk to customers. This is a time where they need to get the lay of the land. No changes. Next slide. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. I always do that. Sorry. The next 30 days, they can look at low-hanging fruit, maybe get some quick wins, but they can also start to map out some structural changes to the business without implementing any changes. And then day 60, this is where the rubber meets the road. And they should have a project with a milestone attached and a measurable result. So this is a 90-day plan. And hopefully you make it to the end of this and you've made a beautiful marriage here. So
Question from the crowd.
Yes.
How detailed of an onboarding plan should there be? I've seen CEOs that say, well, this person is the builder operator. They should come in and onboard themselves. And I've seen some come in and say, in a very detailed path, here's what exactly I need. Which do you think is best?
I would take the middle ground. I would say that there should be some structure going in. Like I laid out, the first 30 days, there should be, okay, these are some things you should do. Now, one of the things I would say is having them do a deep dive on product features and talk to customers. I would tend to leave that out. I would just say, the first part, which is the listening mandate, but if they and leave out the deep dive on product and customers, leave that part out. And if they don't do it, those are red flags. Just see if they do that on their own. If they don't do that in the first 30 days, then that's information you should have. They should automatically do that, right? So there should be some structure, but leave some room for, they didn't do that. Why didn't they do that?
I like that. Tests built in throughout. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not from the group.
Katie, do you have some questions?
No, not quite yet.
Okay, I have a question for the group. Is it better to have a B player in the number 2 position in the company, or is it better to leave it open?
I have a guess.
Okay, what's your
I'd say
guess?
leave it open.
That's my guess too. And why would you say that, Katie?
I think bringing in one B level player sets the tone for the whole rest of the company. And I would rather have an empty spot personally than the talent that's not working with the team.
I
Heather has
agree.
commented in as well. Leave it open and wait for the right person.
I agree. And isn't it nature abhors a vacuum? Yes. I have any other questions.
Going back to one thought earlier, I did wonder if it's possible to move too quickly on a candidate. Sometimes I've heard, well, it's a C-level position. It should take a certain amount of time to go through a thorough process. What do you find to be that balance?
That's a good question. I've also heard hire fast, fire faster. I actually have heard that. I think you can do your due diligence quickly. Um, if it's a C-level candidate, you still have to move them through quickly. It doesn't take a long time to get to an answer. You just need people available. You should have if you're a startup, typically you've raised money, and if it's C-level, you're going to have your board talking to them. You can move them through quickly. And you have to do your due diligence. You have to check references and things like that. If you have a headhunter in the middle, that's helpful because they can do a lot of the legwork for you. But I will tell you, if you're dealing with a unicorn candidate and you're going to take 3 weeks, 4 weeks to do this, you've
Too
got to
slow.
be careful. Yeah, it's slow.
Makes sense.
It's slow. You need to have somebody putting pedal to the metal, because a lot of things, you've got to get your team aligned. We're pushing this through. This is a priority. It's a priority. It's a priority. And everybody's busy. Everybody's got too much to do. But this is priority.
I think that's alignment with the leadership team on that urgency too. I like that you said assessing the CEO's fire in the belly for the type of
The other thing is always making sure in a startup that you have people with a sense of urgency. And you can't teach sense of urgency. Somebody either has it or they don't. You know what I mean, Katie?
Yeah, I think that matters a tremendous amount to the overall operating pace of the company too. A question that just came in, how long will a unicorn typically stay with a company before they are off to the next adventure?
Look at their resume. Look at their resume.
When thinking about hiring builder operators, are there certain patterns that you look for in their background as well? Is it company name, tenure, positions, titles, anything like that?
Said that again, how can you tell if somebody's a builder operator?
Yeah, what any commonalities in their background or resumes?
You have to look at the size companies they've been with and what they've done in those companies. And when you talk to them, if it's always we, find out what I did, what what they did individually. If it's always we, you have to drill down and find out what they did individually, what they built individually, you know, and what size the company was when they did things. Um, if I'm looking for a builder operator, I want somebody who's actually helped a company scale. Now, um, if I want somebody who has startup background, and big company background, I might look for somebody who's done a startup within a large company, but it definitely has to be a standalone startup in a big company. But if I'm looking for a builder operator, I'm going to look for somebody who's done a startup and helped them scale to 3 or 4 or 500 people. That's what I'm going to look for.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Other questions from the group?
I personally, I specialize in unicorns. I do. Not just builder operators, but I specialize in, I mean, right now, one of the searches I have is a VP of digital technology and innovation. And it's somebody who's going to lead software engineering, but they're going to end up as president of a business unit of a billion-dollar privately held company. And all of the candidates they'd seen wanted to be a CTO. So I need to find somebody who's um, basically in product management, a VP of product management, who can lead a software engineering organization who will become president. It's a very, very different type of position. It's a unicorn. Thank you very much.
How long do you work with the hiring team before you even consider opening a position? Because I think some part of it is the amount of alignment that you have on what it actually means for compensation. Sometimes there's misalignment there, job description, etc. There's a lot of pieces that even have to come together before talking to the first candidate. How does August run that?
Um, you know, I think it really depends on the company. It typically doesn't take that long to get people in alignment. It depends on how far they are in their process. It might take a month. It typically doesn't take that long to get people in alignment. It doesn't. Because usually by the time they get to we really need this person, it's more of everybody wants to fall in alignment because they really need this person and they're exasperated. By the time they get to talking to a search person, there is like we need to do something about this now. But the other thing is, quite often I'll work as a thought partner with the CEO, and we've massaged this to a point where we bring in a team to kind of get us further along. So that helps.
I've seen that urgency before of we've tried to hire for this role specifically, we've struggled. Now we want to bring in an outside recruiter to help. Hurry up, let's look at candidates. And there's no wanting to align first on the job description or other pieces of the role. And sometimes that nice pause helps accelerate the process too.
Right. And what do I want to say? One of the things startups sometimes do is they there's a tendency to think that they'll wait to hire somebody because the cost might be too high, either in search fees or just in terms of, do they want to spend a couple $100,000 on this position? What they might not be thinking is the opportunity cost of not having that, somebody in the saddle. And I encourage all CEOs to look hard and fast at what it's costing them to not have that person in that role, because I think it's far more expensive to not have somebody in that position, because maybe it's a little bit higher of an equity play, maybe it's deferred, a bonus that they can build into performance. There are lots of different ways to slice that cake, but you have to look at opportunity costs. I cannot stress that enough. And working with startups, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes CEOs make, is not realizing what they're missing out on. That's even worse than a failed hire. That's a failed hire costs you, more than double what the salary is. Missed opportunity, it can be like $1 million miss.
That's a great idea. I had never thought of it from that perspective. I think likely CEOs don't sit down and calculate that because it requires a lot of thought, and it's painful then to realize how significant the gap is too. That's fascinating.
That's what I do when I work with CEOs. I say, okay, let's look at what could happen now. What are you not doing because you're running 3 departments? What could you be doing if you had this person in place?
What are some other common misconceptions or downfalls you see during this process?
Can you be more specific?
What do CEOs or other leaders not understand about making these hires, or what are common even errors that you've seen come up?
Oh, let me think. Hiring in their own image. One, you always want to hire people smarter than you if you possibly can. Just, hire above you if you possibly can. What you want are people who compliment you and who challenge you, because that's how you grow a company. That's how you get better. Who's a CEO has some ego, but leave as much of your ego aside and get the best of the best. That's what you want. Oh, what other things do I notice? Oh my God. Having been a CEO myself, it's hard to let go. It is so hard to let go when you're used to having control of everything and okaying everything and starting to delegate more and more. It's hard for a CEO who's had their hands on everything to start to let go. And you need to do that more and more, because you've got a chokehold on the company. If you're running engineering and you're running sales and you're running support, and as a CEO, you need to start letting go and start delegating more and more. And that's one of the hardest things a CEO needs to do to get past that 25, 35, 45, 55, 65 level of employees. You need to do that. You need to let go, and you need to trust. And you need to trust that you've hired the right people. And you can't surround yourself with yes men or yes women. You can't do it. And there's a tendency to do that. And, oh, this is one. Um, everybody has a beef with the boss. That was a really hard one for me to learn. You're the boss, and everybody has a beef with you at some point.
Hmm.
That's hard. Have you ever heard that one?
I have worked with a CEO that wanted to be everyone's friend, and I said, no, no one will ever view you as a friend. I'm really sorry about that,
Yeah.
but that is not how the role works.
Yes, somebody told me that, and it was like, but I'm so nice. Yes, that was I started my first company at 23, and it was like, really? So yes, I had to learn that.
Another question from the group. Are there certain requirements or descriptions that you put in your job listings or descriptions even to help find unicorns?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, you know, I this most recent position that I I'm working on, the one that they get to become the president when the current president retires in 3 years. I so wanted to put that in there, but I couldn't because it makes um it would make recruiting a lot easier. But you just have to craft it for each position. You just have to craft the job description so they're just right. So they're just right. It's hard to say depending on the position, but you have to make it sexy. It's an art form, truly an art form.
I also try to think about what motivates the right candidates, whether it's growth or just expansive role, breadth, objectives, that sort of thing too.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an art form.
Okay, well, that is all the questions that we've gotten from the audience. I really appreciate everyone attending. Any final words from either you or Faith, Kathleen?
Um, I will just say that when I sold my company, the two things the things that I was proudest of was one was making it through. I think building a company is one of the hardest things you can possibly do. It's it's a lot of it's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of, you know, doing the impossible. It's just making it through. So kudos to all you entrepreneurs out there. It's hard and it's worth it. And the other thing that I was proud of was touching a lot of young lives that people who came to work for me, and I watched them grow, and whether they stayed with my firm or moved on, it was really gratifying to have been a part of their career trajectory. And I was really happy about that.
Great parting thoughts. Thank you. Yes, thank you out there to all the builders. SBCC cares deeply about helping the success of your company. Wanted to thank August Leadership, Kathleen and Faith for joining today. We really appreciate your time and thoughts and wisdom. We will be sending out the recording after this, so please feel free to store up any questions. We've got Kathleen and Faith's contact information here too, in case you'd like to reach out to them, or I'm happy to facilitate an intro later on as well. Thank you all for joining today, and I hope you have a great Thursday.
Thank you. Bye bye.